Hey everybody, Bob Babbitt here, joined by Barrie, Shepley, and Talbot Cox, and this is our version of game day. We have the Super Bowl of triathlon coming up on Sunday. We're talking Challenge Daytona, which is also the PTO 2020 championship. So boys, it's not often that we have the greatest athletes on the planet from Ironman, 70.3, ITU, world champions, gold medalists, Ironman world champions. Let's talk a little bit about what the course and the weather, what all that means, putting all those athletes together. And let's start with you, Barrie. You watched the ITU races. You've been covering the ITU races forever. Talk a little bit about the challenge for these guys for being in the time trial position for 50 miles when they've never done that before.
You know, it's going to be really important to realize a few things. First of all, I think we'll never see this ever in the history of the sport. There's never been a time when there wasn't a Hawaii Ironman, an Olympics, World Championships. It's the only race that matters in the entire year. You've had no excuses. You've known for 9 months, kind of hunkering down in your basement, that there's probably going to be one race at the end of the season. Certainly for the last 4 months, everyone's been able to focus on this distance and to be ready. So on a normal year, you would take some of those ITU guys who had to just hop in. Javier Gomez might have 2 or 3 weeks to kind of prepare for the 70.3 Worlds. After he won Edmonton, he went to Mont Tremblant. He only had a few days, kind of to get ready. This year, he's had 4 or 5 months to be ready. So there's no excuses for the short distance guys to say, I didn't have time to prepare. I was on the circuit. He had nothing else to do but ready for today.
The other side of it is there's really no track record because this is a blank slate.
That's true.
Everybody's coming here not knowing, so-and-so did this at Kona, did this 70. No, nobody's seen very much racing at all. Talbot, you watch Lionel very closely. You're up close and personal with so many different athletes. Talk a little bit about what you think this course brings to the table.
Yeah, exactly. I think last year something that was really interesting about this course that no one really knew is that the amount of power that it takes on the bike at this course. A lot of people are like, Cozumel is really flat. Mar del Plata is extremely flat. But this course, even though it's a 50-mile bike, it really favors the bikers only because there's no hills, there's no time to turn, to brake, to sit up, to change positions. This really favors your, I would say, Zwift-style riders, your Sebastian Kienle, your Uber bikers, Sam Long, Lionel Sanders, just because it is about 380 watts is probably what Alistair, Sebi, Lionel, Sam, that's what they will be pushing for about an hour and a half. So coming off that, I remember speaking with Lionel after the race last year. He was like, it was incredible to see how hard the bike was, that his legs hurt worse than they did coming off the bike here than they did in Kona.
What's fascinating to me is talking about Lionel. He's been preparing for this by doing things like the 1 hour record up in Canada, right? And so he's been in this position, that time trial position, pushing as many watts as humanly possible for a solid hour. And then he also set a PR for his 5K. I mean, all that's in preparation for this. It's great to get the hour record, but he's trying to do something unbelievable here on Sunday.
Well, I think one of the things, and I chatted with him, he was realizing, how fast is Ali Brownlee? How fast is Vincent Louis? How fast are Skuman and all of these guys? He knows that I've never actually had to race those guys before, but some of these guys are ridiculously fast. And so he loves challenges, and his challenge was, I got to take everything up another notch. My bike is fast, I got to go faster. My run was quick, I got to get closer to 14 minutes because those are some of the times those ITU guys, Mario Mola has broken 14 minutes off the bike. That's the new standard. So when he got down to his 14:34, 35, he knows he's getting closer to those guys. What I'm really interested to see, though, when you kill yourself on that bike, what can you run? And he'll be the kind of guy that can run with tired legs. Some of the ITU guys might find that it's a whole different animal, trying to run sub 15 minutes for that 5K pace when I've already put out those 380 watts for 90 minutes.
Yeah, and for Talbot, from your perspective, I think the most important aspect of this is a 20-meter rule.
Yeah,
because
most definitely.
If it was the ITU guys who are going to be off the front swimming, and then they get out there, and if they could work together, forget about it.
They're gone.
They're gone.
Yeah.
You'll never see them. It's Vincent Lewis, it's Alistair, it's Johnny. But the 20-meter draft rule is going to wreak havoc on some of these guys.
Yeah. And what will be the most interesting thing is that if you look at the swim is not. This will be one of the fastest swims in the sport of triathlon. I mean, or in any race in history, because you have Vincent Louis, you have Henry Schumann, and not only that, you do have some firepower in the swim as well. I mean, you look at Tim O'Donnell. He can hang with those guys, and he's going to be shortly off the back of them, which right when they get off the bike, I mean, of course, you would think that Johnny's going to help out Alistair, but that front firepower in the swim, it will be a really big deciding factor in this race.
The other thing, taking a look at the swim, and it'll be interesting to see, it's a little closer to ITU type swimming, though. When you look at all those corners they've got to go around, I mean, a classic kind of 70.3 race, long, 800 meters out, make a turn, come back. When you got to start making those loops, you got to get out of the water. That'll be to the benefit, I think, to the really good swimmers, because they know how to go around those corners quick. They know how to get out of the water, get their heart rate back down, back into the water. Whereas if you start to look at some of the longer distance guys and they go around those corners, they start to, play water polo on each other like you have in ITU racing. That, suddenly now, not only aren't you a great swimmer, but you're now not a great swimmer who's getting beat up as you're going around all those corners. It'll be interesting to see if those mid-pack guys start to suffer a bit more.
The thing that I'm most interested in, you've got so many world-class athletes really in a small area. And with a 20-meter draft rule, say Lionel's coming up, the guys like Lionel who are going to go and buy people like they're standing still, that's one thing. But you're thinking about passing, and you've got guys who are sitting 20 meters, and there's 4 of them. You got to go by all of them.
Or 8 of them.
Or 8 of them, or 10 of them. How do you do that? Or do you go, I can't burn those matches. I got to sit back here and wait. Well, somebody 3, 4 bikes up could take off and be gone.
If you're Sam Long or one of those guys who know you've got to get it done on the bike, you're just going to have to go. And if you have to go wide, a little bit wider up on the side of the track and take yourself another maybe, a tenth of a kilometer longer just to get around those guys, you might have to put that 420 watts out for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And it's going to be the guy who, are you here to come top 10? Or are you here to try to win? And I think that's going to be the question. We know those great swimmers like Brownlee and Gomez, they're all going to be near the front right off the start of the day. But if you're looking at, Sebi, if you're looking at Lionel and some of the guys who want to win this thing, and they're coming 2.5 minutes behind out of the water, they're going to have to make risk. And with risk comes, either great reward or a blow. And I think that's what's going to be exciting to see who gets the reward and who blows up and on the side of the road partway through.
The prize money is so big, $1.15 million, and it goes so. I mean, everybody is pretty much guaranteed.
They are
$2,500 after what, 20th place, something like that. So the prize money is huge. So don't you think that puts people in a position of going, I'm willing to take a risk? There's $100K out there.
I think so for sure. I mean, when you see that big rise, and I saw that in the old days at the High V Triathlon.
Yes,
guys go. And the other interesting thing is you actually see the biggest performers tend to come out on the biggest days when those prize purses, when the Olympic Games are there, when the World Championships there, when there's a $150,000 prize purse, for first, the big guys come out. So don't be surprised if you recognize the name, on Sunday, somebody that's not just going to be like somebody, wow, I'd never heard that guy's name before. It's going to be, I think, somebody who you've heard their name, they're here to get the job done, they've had a proven track record, and they have been focusing on this race for 2 or 3 or 4 months.
And I think that's going to be something interesting when these athletes come off the bike. You look at Vincent Louis, who his longest race ever is, I would say, 2 hours, for sure. And when they come off the bike, they're going to be feeling that sting in their legs, which they're usually not used to, just like you had said earlier against these long course athletes. So and then the run will continue to go past that 10K marker. So a lot of it is pacing, and of course they've come into this completely prepared. Vincent Louis is one of the most well-rounded athletes in the sport right now. And so it'll be really interesting to see, can they hold that 300-watt, 390-watt threshold for that hour and a half and then get off and run a quick pace?
I think Vincent Louis is probably the biggest dark horse. He could win this thing or he could be 20th. And neither would be a surprise. I talked to his coach, Joel Filio, and said, look, traditionally all the rest of my guys have taken their break now. They're getting ready for the Olympics. Vincent was in good health. He was motivated. There was some prize purse. It was a chance for him to kind of get ready and try something new. Even though he's, looks like he's 18, I think he's 29 or 30 years of age. So, and he's got a goal to go off to eventually to Paris in 2024. So this is the perfect year to try that longer distance thing where there's no other risk. He's not messing up the Olympics. It's 11 months away for him to worry about Tokyo. So it's the perfect situation. So he's got nothing to lose. He's not supposed to win this thing. He's a rookie trying this for the first time. Why not go for a flyer? And I can see him kind of just using somebody else. If I was coaching Vincent Louis, I'd say, get that 20 meters behind 1 or 2 of those lead guys and just stay there. When they drink, you drink. When they go faster, you go faster. And then see if you're able to get the job done on the run. I asked him a couple days ago whether or not he's run a half marathon. And he said in one of his 25K runs, he looked at his watch, and it was a training run.
Yeah.
And he looked down and saw it 105 and change, at the half marathon point. So we know the guy can run, and he can run really fast, but, can you do it with really tired legs? That's what's going to make Sunday so exciting.
Exactly. And Bob, you were here last year. You've seen a lot of these courses. What are your thoughts after being here last year, seeing this course?
Well, to me, what I love about this course is I think it is deceptive. People think on paper they go it's flat. And just watching how people got beat up last year after the bike because they were, one of the athletes who I was interviewing this week told me that he was using, as it got windier, he rode for 2 hours. He was using pushing 80 watts more to maintain the same speed on the backstretch than he was during the first hour. And I was like,
That's a lot of watts.
That's a lot of watts,
Yeah.
right? And I'm thinking, my God, this is going to take a huge toll on people. So who is the absolute best at running off the bike and running fast? I mean, you got someone like Gomez, someone like Alistair who ran 29 at that perfect race in 2012 in London, and Javier Gomez ran mid 29s and lost. So that Alistair, and you've watched probably more of Alistair's races than anybody. How do you bet against someone like Alistair here?
You probably don't bet against him. The other element of Ali, and I remember watching him and Sebi and Lionel when they raced in Europe 2 summers ago when Lionel eventually beat Sebi at the Challenge Championship. Ali does not like to not come off the bike in the lead. And he literally nearly killed himself to make sure that he stayed in the lead, but by 4 kilometers into that race, he was walking.
Yes.
Now he had some injuries and all kinds of stuff. But his personality is, I don't care if your name is Sebastian or Lionel Sanders or what your name is, you shouldn't be going by me.
I'm Ali effing Gomez.
Yeah.
I'm Ali
Yeah.
effing.
And I mean, you love it. I love that about the guy. Like, even though he knew he could outrun everyone in those ITU years, 6-8 years ago, he still would destroy you on the bike. Like, he wasn't just happy enough that I'm going to win the race. I want to hurt you on the bike, and then I want to hurt you again on the run. So that warrior mentality is so exciting to watch. And that this is the right distance. He's now proven himself at Ironman.
Yes.
He can go. So, to race for 3 hours and whatever it turns out to be, 20 minutes, is not going to be fearful for him to just go and race this like it's an ITU race, not like it's a long distance race.
He has changed the face the way if this was 15 years ago, we would have looked at this and said, okay, there's the ITU guys, they swim, they go for a little bike ride, and then they run hard. But Alistair changed all that. Right.
Well, he did, and then he forced every other athlete. I know the athletes that I was working with, back 4, 5, 6 years ago. Like I said, like I can't just sit in a pack now because we'll be 3 minutes behind. He's not, even though he's the best runner in the sport at that time, he wasn't prepared to just sit in the pack and outrun you. Other guys would have been happy to do that.
Never.
He has really changed it, and it's so refreshing to see a guy who's not satisfied unless he's emptied the tank in every element, and he's efficient. Now that he's had a couple of years on the time trial bike, that he looks comfortable on the bike. He doesn't look uncomfortable. I'm going to be interested to see what happens with Johnny, because this is really the kind of little just step out of the ITU phase for Johnny Brownlee, where he's just trying something new. He knows that the Olympics next year are really important to him. He's already on that team. But this is an opportunity, and he's such a phenomenal athlete that he could be one of those guys who slip into a top 3, 4, 5, and it would not be a surprise at all.
Yeah.
Could you see Johnny ever knocking off Alistair? It's funny.
I don't know. It's hard to say because
No.
No. Is it
If he goes by him, Ali will grab him by the neck and drag him to the ground. The two of them will be disqualified. Like he said, Ali in the press conference this morning, they said, you know when you're in good shape, how? Well, I can tell by the workouts with Johnny, whether I'm beating him by a little or I'm beating him by a lot. And they asked him, well, are you in good shape? And he said, yeah, I'm beating him by a lot. So, at this point, it would have to be a terrible day for Ali Brownlee, meaning, some GI problems or flat tire or something for Johnny to beat him. And that is not saying that Johnny couldn't be second or third.
Right.
But I've always seen that kind of little brother, big brother for the last, whatever. And what's amazing is now seeing them back training together, because there was a window there about 3 years ago when Ali was injured. Johnny was not the same athlete.
Yeah.
Really?
He was not the same.
I remember that.
Not the same. I mean, if you look at their data, there was like a 1-2 or 1-3 if you threw Gomez into the mix, probably 85% of the races. And then suddenly there was after Ali stepped away with some injuries and so forth, there was probably
It really
18 to 20
dropped.
months where he wasn't on the podium even some
bunch
top
of
5s or
races.
6s. So he is he just responds incredibly well. by being with his brother. The two of them are like, the mix. Ali, I think could probably respond better not having to have Johnny there.
Right.
But Johnny, when his brother's there and the two of them are pushing and in a race, and I can remember this one particular race, it was in Leeds, and literally the chase pack was just literally maybe 10 seconds back, and there was no way that Ali Brownlee was letting 20 other guys get on. And Johnny was prepared to give up. I could tell. He was looking back, and Ali was swearing at him, and they just got into town 10 seconds ahead, and by the time they'd come out of that loop in town, 4 loops, they had a minute, and the race was over, and the Brownlees, destroyed at home. But, like, Johnny was prepared to let up, and Ali there was no way we're letting those guys catch us. So there's a certain power that the two have together, and I think Johnny Brownlee is a better athlete when Ali is in the field, when Ali is racing, and when Ali's training for the same type of racing they're doing. So don't be surprised to see Johnny Brownlee have a phenomenal race this weekend.
Yeah.
It's two guys who also sort of connected at the hip over time. Sebastian Kienle, Lionel Sanders. The two of those guys have so much respect for each other. There's a good chance they could come out of the swim fairly close together. And not that you can work together, but the two of them can be pacing well enough to try to make up a gap on the rest of the I2 guys who should be off the front. From being so close to Lionel, what do you think?
It'll be interesting, just kind of like you touched on earlier. Lionel's bike fitness is probably the best it's ever been, and that's what he had told me, and I also said in some interviews as well as his run fitness. But his swimming, I asked him about his swimming. I was like, are you concerned about your swimming? And he said he had one of his worst swims in history in Kona in 2017, which is also his best result. So I think it's this far line of, do we work on the swim and improve these 20 seconds and lose it in the bike? Or do we work on the swim and improve 30 seconds and lose it on the run? So this race is one of those races. In Ironman, you can say you never will lose the swim you will never lose the race on the swim. But this race, you don't really know, because I think Sebi and Lionel and Sam Long, those athletes, if they're anywhere north than 3 minutes, it's going to be a tough day for them.
Yeah. And do you see anybody like a Daniel Beckegaard or some of the guys who we don't know that well making an impact and potentially winning here?
Well,
maybe
I'm curious.
Top 5?
I'm curious, on somebody like I think Vincent Lewis is the biggest dark horse. Could be on the podium or could be 20th. The other one is Morgan Pearson. Just had that phenomenal half marathon run recently, so we know he's running well. He's swimming faster than, let's say, the longer distance guys.
Yes.
And so the only question mark for me with Morgan is just, can he put out that 375 to 380 watts for 90 minutes? Can he do that? Because I think he runs really well off the bike. I've watched him in the last 4 or 5 years, regardless of how tired his legs are at an ITU. So I think he'll have a really, really good run. But if he loses 5 minutes or something like that, 4 minutes on the bike, then he's not going to be, he'll be 20th. Yeah. He's not going to be a factor. But he's one of those guys that could be there. And the one that no one's been talking about, and I'm not sure why, I don't know what his fitness is like. I haven't had a chance to speak to him, and that's been the oddity of this year with not seeing athletes, is Ben Canute.
I was just going to say that,
that Ben is going to be a factor in the water. And
Absolutely.
I think his personality is not going to let guys bike away. Like whatever Ali's doing, he's going to do that, Gustav and so forth. So he's going to follow those guys. And then the question mark is, can he run as fast as he needs to over 18 kilometers? But he's a tough as nails guy. This is his only race. He's had a podium at 70.3 Worlds and others. So, he likes to be the top American, and this is racing in the hub of America, in this event.
He loves when people count him out. And when he went to Chattanooga and went off the front, was not afraid of the moment, 70.3 Worlds, went off the front, took Javier, he had a hell of a run to run him. I think he had a run like 110.
One of the best runs you've ever seen.
Ever.
Yeah.
Right? And then the following year, people forget with Jan Frodeno and Alistair Brownlee and Javier Gomez, 1, 2, 3 in South Africa, who was in 4th, but Ben Canute. So when the spotlight is on, sometimes that guy can step up, and his wife's about to have a baby within the next couple of weeks. I think he seemed very confident, and he loves the fact that nobody's talking about him.
Yeah.
I had an email sent to me to say look out for Andreas Salisberg, the Swiss kid. So he's got that ITU background, but he's also played around with those longer races. But the odd thing of this year, we haven't got 1 or 2 or 3 races to build some history on. Like in many athletes, this is it. So have you been training in the cold, or have you been in Florida or in some warmer climate, whatever the case may be? So it's really difficult to say. But I think everyone is coming here, and I can't imagine with everyone knowing they're going to take their break after Sunday go for it. Like,
Yeah.
go for a
This is
flyer
it.
because
Nothing to lose.
this is sort of like the Olympics. You know what? I'm going to go for the win, and 19th is as good as 4th kind of thing.
Yeah.
So should we pick guys and then talk about the women's race?
Let's do it. Let's go for our third place, our podium picks.
All right.
Oh, am I starting? I'm gonna for third. I'm going with. I'm gonna go Sebastian Kienle in third.
I'm going to take Lionel Sanders for the podium.
Oh, for third.
For third place.
Third
Third place. Okay.
I think I'm going to go with the current world champion Gustav Iden.
There you go.
So
Yes, I would go with. I'm going with Vincent Louise for second for the silver.
Allie Brownlee for the silver.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with Allie Brownlee for the silver. I remember being in St. George 70.3 off a hard bike, and Lionel outran Allie. So I'm going to have to go with Lionel Sanders for the win with Allie in second. So I'm going to
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to pick Mr. Sanders for the win.
Is this a Norwegian flag? I've got Gustav for the win here. So I think we got pretty close to the same animals out
Yeah.
I've got Alistair for the win.
there. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Swapping over here.
It's right here. Here you go.
Oh, go. Oh, I got the wrong flag. Okay.
So that's it's going to be an incredible race, and it's kind of like what we said earlier. There's 30 guys that could go within the top 5.
No
Yeah.
On
question.
the start field, and
Yeah.
there's definitely going to be someone that we don't even mention in this
Oh, of course.
entire interview,
Which
that
makes
will
it
go in
fun.
the top 5. Exactly.
Because we have no idea. You guys know more about this stuff than we do. That's why they do the races. Otherwise, you send your resume in.
Exactly.
It means nothing. This is chatter. But what's great about it is when we have that opportunity. Because most of the races that you and I attend, if
Yes.
there's like the Ironman or 70.3, when there's 3 or 4 pros,
Mm-hmm.
and you sort of know the podium before the race starts.
Just the
Yeah,
color of.
yeah.
Just the color
Yeah,
of
yeah.
what
Just
medal they're going to
just
get.
that. Exactly,
But having
exactly.
60 of
Yeah.
the greatest men on the planet racing is so cool. So
And speaking on that too,
Yes.
what was a big deciding factor in this race will be the wind and the weather.
Absolutely.
Which is,
Yes.
I think that you have the weather
We
stats
do.
for Sunday.
for the men's race, it's supposed to be 70 degrees, and they say 5-mile-an-hour winds, and that's for the 2:00 start. And
That's pretty good conditions. I mean,
I
you
think
can
that's
ask
really
about-
good.
wetsuit swim, they're probably going to be about 62, 63, so it's not brutally cold. But
No.
But if you need a wetsuit, those athletes who benefit by a wetsuit will certainly benefit.
So do you think it will be a wetsuit swim?
I will be incredibly surprised if it is not. It's not
Oh,
going to
yeah.
warm up
That
dramatically.
water's not
yeah,
70,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
low 60s right now.
The water is.
Yeah, 63, I think. Yeah. So
And throughout the week we've been here, the wind tends to pick up during the day, which is
Yes.
2:30 right now, and you can probably see the flag behind us. I mean,
flags are all moving.
even though it says it's a little bit lower, it'll be interesting to see if it really does pick up. Is when you got that straight headwind on this track, it really soars.
you got to be strong.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
definitely have to be strong.
And then
Okay,
what about
yeah.
for the women's race?
Well, let's talk. We've got, look at the field you got there. Sarah Crowley, Annie Hogg, Ironman world champion, Holly Lawrence coming off a silver at 70.3 Worlds. And let's talk about some of the ITU women that you know so well.
Well, one athlete I think is a dark horse right off the top is Jody Stimpson. Just missed making that Olympic team. He's had some challenges over the last couple of years. Spectacularly fit gal. I mean, she really, really knows how to push hard, and she's motivated. So she would be one of those dark horses, when you're talking from an ITU side of things. But it's hard pressed for me to not right off the bat say, look out for Nicholas Spirik.
I
She's
agree.
raced so seldom. I think she said she's got about 12 of these 70.3s in her whole long career. I mean, that dates back to, back into the 90s when
Right.
she was racing. Almost every one of those. She's never not been on the podium in a 70.3. So that's pretty spectacular. She's won most of them and won most of them on a road bike. And in many cases, I know her coach, Brett Sutton, had her doing like these halves, like literally 12 days before the Olympics when she
Right.
won the gold. She did a half Ironman, destroyed everyone
Crazy.
on a road bike. So I have always believed that she could have maybe be one of the greatest ever at Ironman.
If she wanted it.
She went to the games, the European Games in the marathon. So
Yep.
this woman can run incredibly well. And we know that she's one of the greatest bikers ever, and her swimming is not so bad. I mean, she's been up there in these ITU races. I think she wants to go to her 5th Olympics coming up. So that's pretty amazing for her, balancing everything else. So Nicholas Spirik has got to be one of those people. And then for me, how can't you say Paula Findlay is a factor?
Yeah.
She's,
Exactly.
won it here a year ago. The last 2 times she raced, now was last year.
Yeah,
she won the last.
70.3.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
she
won
won,
those
yeah.
2 races. So, and she's spent a great amount of time, training in great locations. And I think, her and Eric are in a really good place in terms of she's got a great training partner every day. with her partner Eric. So I think Paula Finley is going to have another great race, and she's strong on the bike.
Yeah. And if you watch that Triathlon Life YouTube videos, I think Paula really struggled with injuries for a really, really long time. I mean, it was really a dark point in her career, and she even mentioned it in her Unbreakable series on the PTO YouTube. And it's been incredible to see that this year, she said that this is the first year that she feels like that she's back in that run shape, that she's back into that mental focus, that hard efforts. And so this is her first year without any injuries. So, and she said that she's the fittest she's been in her career.
And happy, I can tell.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
happy. And actually, the other thing she said, which I think could affect a lot of our athletes, is how many times in your career have you had a 6-month of solid training with no racing, no packing up the bike, flying somewhere, coming back, recovering, and she has really thrived on just having the solid, consistent, get up every day, get 1% better every day.
If you had 6 months, it's because you were injured, right? Usually, if it's 6 months between races, it's because you were injured. I mean, she literally raced this race, essentially 12 months ago. So she's in a very, very good place, no question. Lisa Norden, has just come off of some great bike racing, so we know that she's there. The question mark for me with Lisa is not her swim or her bike. It's just, the run has been inconsistent over the last few years with running injuries. But, she's so great. And, could you only imagine Nicholas Birrick and Lisa Norden with a kilometer to go, dreaming about, hey.
2012.
Yeah, hey, here we go again. Let's redo this again. To have that many special people in this race, the two of them, I saw them at the press conference today. They looked over at each other and they had great smiles. It's that kind of friendly, wow, we shared that piece of history that can never be taken away, and we're still racing at high levels.
I chatted with both of them and said, have you guys ever sat down with a bottle of wine and just talk about this amazing sprint, not just a sprint finish, a photo finish for the Olympic gold medal in 2012? And
their lives are too crazy.
They've never said, we were both risked off the press conferences and media, and to be honest, we've never really had a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, this might be the weekend. This might be the weekend for that to happen after the race on Sunday.
Lisa told me something funny. She said they protested, right? So they thought it was going to get overturned. And so her federation made a cake with the picture on it of the thinking that she was going to get the gold, right? And says, that never ate that cake. And Nicola was like, well, I'd eat it.
Yeah.
You still got that around? I'll take that cake.
Share with a friend.
And speaking on the press conference this morning, usually when you get to these big races, you look around at all the athletes. When they enter the room, you'll see how fit they are. And one athlete that stuck out extremely confident, extremely excited to race is Holly Lawrence.
Yeah, I know. I thought the same thing.
Just looks on fire right now.
Yeah, no, she carried herself like she's got a mission. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, when you look at Holly's resume, boy, this is that distance, this is that format. She's at the right time of her life in terms of age. I mean, she's got everything going for her. And when this is the only race that matters, I mean, someone is going to be the /Olympic /World Ironman. You put it all together in one pie, and that's what you just won this year. You got all the marbles into one basket. So it's going to be very interesting.
What I love about Holly too is, and you guys saw her at Nice last year when she took silver, and she thought her career was over. Not that long before that, when she shattered her foot. And for her, you could see the emotion come out when I'm back. I'm back. And I think what this year has done for all of us, it makes us appreciate what we have.
Yeah.
And I think for our athletes, you can see it with Sebastian Kienle, you can see it with Holly, just being back racing again. A little bit of normalcy in a wacko year. I don't think they feel the pressure of, okay, there's $1 million on the line. I'm getting to race. I'm getting to have fun.
The PTO has done a phenomenal job, in every way that you can imagine, allowing that. And I've heard it probably, 60 times by those elite athletes. Like, they helped that small race in my country so that my locals got a chance to race. And PTO's, a dozen races, they helped the one that I put on in Canada. But Australia, and I think there's one in Brazil coming up. So that helped, because these athletes, it's not really the names here so much. It's the kids back home who are 22, 24, and they're starving. Those races and the little budgets that they've been able to get those stipends from the PTO is the reason why they'll still be racing in 2024 and 2026. Because there's this moment when you're kind of looking at your parents and they're going, hey, dude, Visa bill's got $11,000 on it. It's time to come work at Dad's shoe store, whatever. So they really have gone out of their way. And I think the elite, the top end, whether it's Allie or Holly, they really appreciate what they've not just done for themselves, but for those athletes who aren't even here, because they're going to need that help over the next 12 months.
Exactly.
Who are you thinking on the women's side? So we haven't even chatted about Sarah Crowley and Annie Hogg, who both are obviously great runners.
I
and
think
great
the
cyclists.
swim will be so interesting in this race as well, because you do have, of course, the fast swimmers, but you don't have that fast front pack.
Right.
So you have Lauren Brandon, who's going to be pushing Holly out of the water, and it's if Holly can stay on her feet and push her out of the water, and how big of a lead can Holly get.
I think Lucy Hall will probably.
And Lucy Hall, yeah.
And Lucy could be one of those kind of, like she rides incredibly well. She gets away. Suddenly you've got your 2 or 3 minutes there, and
then it can be over.
Yeah.
Right? People start looking at each other going, second place is a lot of money. I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
hang here.
And that's essentially what happened back in Australia on Holly's breakthrough race. Everyone was like, who is this girl in this pink suit swimming on Lauren Brandon's feet? And then I think she ended up breaking away. Or was Lauren in that race? Maybe not. But I think Holly swam off the front, and she was pretty much solo all day, and she just opened up that gap. And that's where she took her first world championship.
The interesting thing on the women's side, a lot of these women have not raced each other short versus long.
Exactly.
I think the men have a little bit more because Javier's been racing and Ali's been out there, and a few of those others. So I think I'm actually getting a sense that the women are a bit more nervous than the men because, particularly long distance women don't know what to expect from some of these shorter distance women coming in. How fast do they swim?
Yeah.
Because many of the long distance women, if you throw people like Holly out of the mix, they're phenomenal bike runners, but their swim has not necessarily been their strength if you're talking about Laura Phillips
Laura Phillips is
some of those other athletes. So now if you suddenly go, wow, what if I lost 4 minutes in the water? What if I lost 4.5 minutes? So it's going to be very, very interesting. And that, they've got that capacity. They're not going to drop. They're going to continue on right to the finishing line.
No question.
Exactly.
I mean, listen, you make up one spot, that's $10,000.
Yeah.
There's a lot at stake.
And someone like Anna Hugg, who is not the best swimmer, but she's not at the back of the pack on swimming.
She was an ITU guy.
Which will be, and
years.
just flies on the bike, which will be so interesting to watch someone like her race.
This really will resemble much of Annie Haug's career, which was, there's people up the road, and I got to put my head down and catch that pack. And if I think about many of her podiums in the World Triathlon Series, it came from head down, got to make up some time out of the water, drilling it, getting closer on the bike, and then just relentless on the run. And, I can't imagine anyone else within a minute or two of her 18-kilometer run split. So, if she can get close off the bike, do not kind of start handing out the checks before she gets to the finishing line.
And I think she's got a little unfinished business. I think when she left the ITU and left Olympics, she felt that she'd never really had that great race, well, she didn't get the medal. Right, she didn't get the medal.
Now you got Nicola. Now you got Lisa Norden.
Right.
Now you got Jody Stimpson and these athletes in the field. So it's a chance not just to knock off the people I did in Hawaii, but some of the people who are back part of my past.
And another athlete who is completely refocused with the new coach and everything is Emma Pallett.
Yes.
Who is just has an incredible run. So depending on where she can come out in the water, get settled on the bike, and if she can come somewhere near that front pack on the bike, I mean, her run is just deathly.
And Sarah Crowley came over to the States, I think a couple months ago,
Mm-hmm.
just to really focus on this race.
Mm-hmm. Think about how much all of these athletes have had to sacrifice. Some have had to leave their countries early.
Yep.
The entire world is under this odd COVID experience that we're all going through. Some countries are coming out of it. Some are going into a worse situation, depending on which side of the world you're on and whether you're coming into spring or going into the fall.
Right.
They've all had that stress, and am I going to lose my year completely? And some of the Olympians who you can imagine, back in January, you were dreaming about being in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. And psychologically, I saw some of those athletes having to try to come out of it. Mm-hmm. Some of the federations aren't even letting their athletes leave their own countries.
Right.
So it has been an odd year. I know we all can't wait till, the clock rings midnight on December 31st to get into 2021 because we are looking for another year. And this has been such a beacon of hope for all of us, this race.
And I think the PTO has done an incredible job. I mean, they have kept us so secluded in this little bubble that they have basically mimicked from NASCAR. We've all gone in for tests. Every time I feel like I walk through a door, I get my temperature taken. I mean, it is just, they are so on top of it.
It's been great. And we're talking for television, we're talking on Sunday morning, and these are all Eastern times, but the show goes live, 9:30, and that's protriathletes.org, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. The show goes live at 9:30. The women's start is at 10. Mm-hmm. And then the men at 2 o'clock is when they go off. Again, protriathletes.org. And for the women's race, we're looking at 62 degrees at the start, 3 mile-an-hour winds. But I don't know, like when this is saying 5, and I see the flags behind us,
It's ripping.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 5-mile-an-hour winds right now, and it certainly is more like 8 to 10, if nothing else.
The other interesting thing is not just the streaming that's happening, and I mean, I've never seen this many cameras other than at the Olympic Games. Like when you look at the amount of technology that's around this incredible stadium, it is wired for this sport. You've got a lake in the middle of a track that holds 120,000 people. You've got a 4-kilometer, paved, spectacular velodrome, you might as well call it.
It is.
And then the run. I mean, this place has been designed for triathlon. And on top of all of that, I mean, I think there's 100-plus countries that have now taken the feed that are going to be showing up on all of their major, TV channels around the world. So this is huge. This is, second to the Olympic Games in terms of coverage of the sport. Our sport needs it. The athletes need it. It's a great opportunity. And when you realize that, this is an impetus to go into this next 24 months of Olympics, this is a really exciting way to have not lost an entire season.
What I love when I look behind me is I see the Ultimate Triathlon Playground.
Oh, huge.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine? This is a whole week festival, right? A whole week festival where you've got you have bike rides, you got TTs going on, you got camps, you got clinics, you got
it's Malulaba on steroids, in terms of,
Yeah.
you think about it, you can do everything you want all in this one location for a week, and you don't even have to shut down any roads. You're not interfering with the roads and stuff. You can literally have a race at 7 in the morning or under the lights at 9 o'clock at night.
So before we wrap up, I just want to say that what you have done just with bringing the ITU to life, right? Those races that you've been commentating on forever, I really appreciate it because it brings us inside those athletes. And we can't see what's happened to Malulaba. We can't. You're bringing that to life.
It was a great honor for 2.5 decades to be a part of that. And when I see like people that are now retired and they're coaching now, Rito Hugh, who is Nicola's partner, went to 2 or 3 Olympic Games, has medaled at World Champs. Now he's super dad.
Yes.
And I get the odd email from these guys. So it's been wonderful to just be able to be a fly on the wall to watch excellence.
Yes.
And to this weekend, all 3 of us and all of the hundreds of thousands of viewers, and millions around the world are going to be excited to say, wow, this is something I care about. It's a year that we didn't know that we're going to have sport, and all these guys care about one thing. This is the Super Bowl. This is the checker flag. This is it. This is a big deal, and these guys are here. They didn't come around the world for nothing. They're going to go for a flyer and see if they can win this thing.
And Talbot, what you've done that I appreciate is bringing us inside, right? You take us inside with Tim and Rennie and Izzy and with Gwen and with Lionel and with all the features that you're doing. Otherwise, I don't think people understand that our athletes are just like everybody else.
Yeah.
They're age groupers who happen to be good at it.
Really
right?
fast.
Who happen to be better, right? Fast age groupers. And I think a lot of times people watching our athletes don't understand that they have lives, that they have complications, that they have money issues, they have things like that. And you bring that to life and make our people relatable.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
Well, Bob, I think that when I've told you this story 100 times. When I was 9 years old, I was sitting behind my computer watching every Breakfast with Bob episode. It's crazy though.
That was 30 years ago, Bob.
But it's crazy. I think what it all comes full circle is PTO's motto, and we're not just sitting right here preaching this, is better together.
Right.
And they haven't just come into our sport and be like, oh, look, we know what we're doing. Everyone else step aside. They've gotten Bob. They've gotten Barrie. They've gotten people like myself on the media crew. They have gathered everyone, and they're like, let's all work together and let's make this sport the greatest sport on earth.
Yes.
And that is what has just been incredible.
High tide floats all boats.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
And what I also love is the personality of a Lionel Sanders, the personality of a Sam Long. I feel like when I see these young kids coming into our sport, Vincent Louis, that we're in great shape.
Oh my God, are we ever?
Don't you think?
Yeah.
We've got athletes with personality, athletes with character, athletes who are giving the Brownlee brothers and their foundation, what Nicola Spirig has done with her
And
kids'
they're bright
brands.
as hell too. Like when you spend some time and you realize 1 degree, 2 degrees,
Yes.
like all the things I do. I run this charity. I sit on that board. I work. I don't just go fast in my sport. I do all these other things, and they just are great citizens of the world. And the last thing that is really exciting for me, and it happened way back in 1989, is the equality. Equal for men, equal for women in terms of prize money, equal for distance. And it's not a surprise that you see so many world-class women in this field picking this sport.
Right.
And if we take a look at the age group stuff that's happening this weekend, 45 to 50% of the field out there will be age group women and young girls getting started in the sport. It's in a really healthy place.
I always say that our sport is an equal opportunity abuser.
Totally.
We don't care if you're missing a leg. We don't care if you're 90. We are the fountain of youth. You can do this sport forever. And the fact that PTO is doing what they're doing, they're amplifying it. They're bringing it to life. They're basically injecting it and taking it to a level that it's hopefully going to take us to a level we have never been at before.
In which a lot of people are probably confused. Will this just be a one-time race because of COVID? What is the PTO? What is their message? And I think if you just take a look at the media this weekend, the Unbreakable series they've been releasing, they're releasing an incredible short documentary. Actually, today it just got posted if you check out their YouTube, called Unbreakable. They want to take these individual characters and bring them to life, just like your other sports, like the
Basketball.
UFC, basketball, all that. And so that is the main goal, is this is an entertaining sport. How can we grab the age groupers, the amateurs, the youth, and put them all together and work together?
Right, and bring more in.
And bring more in.
We want people to watch this. They see it on television. They go, I want to do that sport. Like, think about it, back to the Julie Moss and the crawl, and that led to people watching the sport and led to people participating in the sport, and that was really the golden era. And now we have the potential to do it again.
Yeah.
Thank you, boys.
Well, we have to pick our podium.
Oh, our podium. Sorry,
for the female race.
Podium for the female race. Let's see. Let's start with bronze. Am I starting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
I'm going to go with Annie Hogg for bronze.
I'm going to go Holly Lawrence for bronze.
Oh, bronze. Bronze is tough. I'm going to go with Nicola Spirig
For bronze.
for bronze.
Okay. I'm going with Nicola Spirig for silver.
I've got Nicola for silver as well.
I'm going to go with, let's see, probably Emma Pallett for silver.
Okay. And, I really I'm going with Lisa Norden for gold.
I just changed my mind from a few minutes ago. I'm going to go on the Canadian side. Paula Finley.
There we go.
Two-time here.
Wow.
I can't go back to Canada and not go for Paula Finley.
Absolutely. Okay.
I've been on the fence about Paula. I think she's in incredible shape. After seeing Holly Lawrence do some hot laps around the track and how fit and motivated she is, she's going to need to race from the front all day long. But I think I'm going to need the UK flag. I think right behind you. I'm going to go with Holly Lawrence.
I love it.
Holly Lawrence.
Boys, it's been an honor. I don't know where my flag is, but I don't think it matters.
It's all good.
It's all good. Thank you so much for taking time. For Barrie Shepley, for Talbot Cox, my name is Bob Babbitt. Again, 9:30, everything kicks off on Sunday. That's Eastern Standard Time. That's the lead into the women's race, which starts at 10 Eastern Standard Time. And then keep watching, and all that's at protriathletes.org. The men's race starts at 2. If you have not watched triathlon before, you are in for a treat. This is going to be really, really special. Thank you, boys.
Thank you very much.
For the guys here, we're out, and we hopefully will be watching with you guys on Sunday.